Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about the one thing that we absolutely, positively have to make our businesses successful, and that's customers. If we're not selling our product, our services to somebody, it's not going to matter what we're doing. But the problem is we're not doing it correctly. And so please join me in welcoming Kristin Zhivago to our program today because she is an expert in this.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Great. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you and then we'll jump into this. I can't wait. As a marketing person in my little heart and soul, I love this. I think this is so much fun and so interesting. So Kristin Zhivago is president of Zhivago Partners, a digital marketing management company, and author of the 5-star book, Roadmap to Revenue, How to Sell Your Way how to sell the way your customers want to buy. Kristin was a revenue coach to CEOs and entrepreneurs, mostly for tech companies, for many years, doing marketing and sales department turnarounds and teaching company managers what their customers wanted to buy from them and how they wanted to buy it. She was one of the first to identify selling as supporting the customer's buying journey and is now rolling out a lead-generating concept called mindset-driven marketing. So again, Kristin, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Great. Well, I always like to know a little bit more about my guest and how they got to where they are today. And especially when I look at, say, your LinkedIn profile and see that you have a degree in music. So tell us how you got to where you are today and how you discovered that this truly is your passion in life.
Okay. So yes, came from a show business family. My dad used to teach ballroom dancing to 3,000 kids a year. They used to be on the Ed Sullivan Show back in the day, quite a bit. And my mother was trying to be a starlet in Hollywood after they got divorced. And so it was I just grew up and I was a singer and played the flute and the guitar and all sorts of things. Sang my way through college, mostly other jobs as well. But what happened was when I was 17, I was the quote unquote, as far as I know, I was the first woman to sell machine shop tools in the United States for a Pratt & Whitney distributor. And they didn't really prepare me. They just gave me a catalog and said, go sell.
Go forth.
Yeah. And so I went out there with my mini skirt and there was one particular incident where I went into a machine shop, the whole place shut down. They're like, what are you here for? And the old foreman came up and he said, okay, honey, then you tell me how your drill bit is better than the one I'm using now. And I had no answer, of course. And I was very embarrassed. I mean, it's easy to get embarrassed when you're 17 years old. I walked out to the car and I remember standing in the parking lot and thinking to myself, I'm going to learn everything I can about selling and technology. And I've been doing it ever since. So that's what got me started. Ended up deciding not to pursue a show business career. I was actually going to be a teacher, but when I got out of college, nobody was hiring teachers, and I just kept selling and marketing. Opened up a ad agency and PR house in Silicon Valley with my husband in 1979. So I've been around a while. And we did that for about 12 years, till 1991, and then the Mac came out. And I looked at my husband and said, they're going to take all their bread and butter marketing, the smaller stuff in-house. He was our graphic designer, but he's also an inventor. He makes boats and speakers and whatever else. I mean, he just makes things all the time. So he retired And I spent the next few years trying to figure out what I was doing. I knew I was helping people market in-house, but I just, so I finally realized I was a revenue coach. And I called myself that because CEOs and business owners don't really care about sales or marketing. They just care about revenue.
Right.
So I invented that category and pursued that, did a lot of marketing and sales turnarounds for small and large companies, and did a lot of work for IBM for a long time, writing their instructions for marketing people and going around the world and teaching people. So that's kind of where I ended up. And then last few years, I realized that there were a lot of business owners that were like deer in the headlights when it came to digital marketing. And since I had been in digital marketing for so long, and I knew I could run a good company, so I actually co-founded an agency in 2014, and then I split off on my own in 2017 and started this company. So that's how we got to where we are now.
Great.
And I'm very passionate still about making it easy for customers to buy.
Right. And that's the key, is making it easy for customers to buy. And I loved reading your book. Hold it up, be Vanna. I have a digital copy, so I can't hold mine up. So Roadmap to Revenue, how to sell the way your customers want to buy.
Right.
And, as I was reading it, I'm a marketing person. That's what I am in my little, so marketing and PR. And it was, I loved it because part of what you were talking about was the fact that quite often marketing is here and sales are here.
Yeah.
And there's a big gap in between.
Yeah.
And they never talk to each other. They might go to the same meetings, but they're, no, we don't talk to each other. And, and so marketing creates these fabulous things. And the salespeople are like, that's not what we sell. That's not what we do, because marketing has to use all the current terms. They have to use, whatever is the brightest and shiniest thing at the moment to sell. And you talk about that in the book, the fact that, and I'll be honest, sometimes I am that marketing person that goes squirrel. And for many people, that's where it gets confusing, because they're thinking, oh my gosh, there are so many options and I have to be everywhere. And then you look at them and they're these, the deer in headlights, especially if they're thinking social media, because they're going, what's a TikTok? And, can I sell on LinkedIn? And, all of these various things. And of course, what you talk about in your book is that everybody has to get on the same page. And the way they do that is by actually truly focusing on the customer and what the customer wants and how the customer buys. And I love that concept because, we were kind of taught that we had our message that we pushed at them and we convinced them to buy. And that's where we get the used car salesman, type of concept, where we don't even care if it's what you want, but you need it. You just don't know, Kristin, that you need it. And you're going to buy it at any price and all of these things. And that might actually work. I mean, clearly it does. Companies are selling like that all the time, but they would do so much better if they were actually talking to the customers how and where they want to be talked to.
Yeah, and everything you're bringing up goes to the second thing. The first thing that I brought out to the market with the book and everything I've been talking about for years is that if you interview your customers after they buy from you, they will tell you about their buying journey, what their issues were, and all of that. You have to do it the right way. And in my book, I spell it out exactly.
Oh, in lots of very great detail.
Yes, I give specific instructions on what works. And I had tested this thousands of interviews for hundreds of companies. So I knew what worked. And they're basically open-ended questions that you ask people on the phone. Asking them those kinds of questions when they're in the buying process won't give you the kind of data you want, because they're negotiating. They're playing poker. They're not going to tell you what they're really thinking. We never tell salespeople what we're really thinking. So had to work on that. That's been holding up as a absolute yes. Once you get that, once you understand what people are really thinking, then you can start building a strategy and align the sales and marketing people on that, and the C-suite. Now, lately, we've been testing this whole concept of what I call mindset-driven marketing, where you can look at who they are, which is the persona, and you can look at where they are, which is all the channels, the social media and SEO and email or websites or whatever, discussion groups. But none of that matters if they're not in the mood, if they're not ready, if they're not looking for what you're selling. Their mindset when they set out to make a purchase. And that's what you have to learn with these interviews. And if you learn that and you understand it, and by the way, it's very specific. It is not a general kind of vague thing. I need to be sexier or smarter or whatever. That's what marketing always says. No, it's I need this very specific thing for this very specific reason. And I have these desires and concerns and questions. And you need to answer those for those buyers. You need to be there when they look, and you need to make an offer that corresponds to the mindset. And if you do that, you both win. They get what they want, and you get what you want, which is a sale. That's what's missing from most marketing now. It's not, everybody's assuming they build these personas, but personas don't buy products and services.
This is true. And I like the concept of having a persona, which, at least that gives you kind of a baseline to start with. One of the worst things anybody can ever tell me is if I say, who is your potential customer? And they look at me and they smile sweetly and they say, everyone.
Everybody. Yes. Everybody.
and I keep trying to think of, and I've been doing this 20 some years, a product that everyone would be interested in. And there's none. I mean, because it can't, you'll say coffee. Well, there are people who don't like coffee. There are people who certainly don't like Starbucks.
I will say there's probably one, toilet paper probably falls in.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And especially, several months ago.
Yeah, exactly. We learned that during COVID. That's right.
That's just kind of one of those things. And that would be that'd be a very interesting study to do later on. Why did you do that? Why did you go buy 89 rolls of toilet paper?
Yeah.
Toilet. And I'm like, really? You didn't buy food? You bought
Well, there's no
paper?
substitute. I think the reason, and I thought about that too, because all of us looked at that and said, wait a minute, why is there no toilet paper all of a sudden?
I know.
And it's because there is no substitute. You can't use a newspaper. You can't use cloth. You can't use paper towels because they'll mess up your plumbing. You have to use toilet paper. You can't even use Kleenex. Kleenex messes up.
Right.
So that's what it was. They had to have that in order to be part of civilized society.
But the funny thing was how much they bought. I mean, the pictures of like the overflowing shopping carts.
Yeah, I know.
And, and granted, some of those might have been buying for multiple people, but sometimes
nobody knew how long that was going to last.
Right.
That was the other thing. We all didn't know. I mean, we could, you see the pictures of people standing in line for bread in Venezuela and, for 3 days. I mean, you just don't want that to happen to you and your family.
Yeah. And of course, buying habits, and that's the other thing is you might figure everything out and then something weird like a pandemic happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have to at least take a stab at trying to figure out who we want to sell to.
Right.
And we were talking before the program, that's the target market. And I hate that term because it's like they have, you're throwing something at them,
you're going to shoot them.
But I like the persona, and I work with my customers to develop, somewhat of a persona. And of course, the thing is, it needs to be specific as you can get it, because that really is knowing more than how to talk to them. You can't just be women over 60 that have, blonde hair. That again is way too general. You get it down, and I even tell them, get a picture, so that this is who it is. But that's just the first kind of part of the process.
Yeah, but I have trouble with personas because they can be very misleading. I mean, and another thing is, if the persona characterizes the situation that the person is in and their state of mind and what they're looking for, that's fine. But if you characterize them by their demographics, an 18-year-old person is just as likely to buy a certain appliance than an 80-year-old person. So it doesn't do you much good. I remember a conference I went to, an e-metrics conference. A friend of mine, Jim Stern, has been putting those on for decades. And one gal got up, Dareth Lampkin, I think her name was, and she said, okay, everyone in the audience, I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to describe a persona to you. And then we'll open your eyes and you'll see who it is. So she described a mother with 2 kids on government assistance, age 33 or something. And so we were all imagining this person. And then, then we opened our eyes and it was Princess Di.
Right. Yeah, because she would get, the government assistance is the tricky
exactly.
part.
So it just, it really hit home for me. And the other big myth that I keep trying to blast out of the water is relationship marketing. We want a relationship with our customers. But as I say in my book, nobody wants the car dealer to show up for dinner.
No.
Okay? You don't go out to buy a car. You don't go out to buy things to make relationships. That's not what you're doing. You're trying to solve a problem. So all of this stuff, the personas, the relationships, that's all about marketers and what appeals to marketers in a way, they're trying to solve a need for themselves, which is to give themselves some basis to go on. And what I learned is that we're all off. We are all missing the mark if we don't talk to customers. Real customers and find out, reverse engineer their buying process. What was it you were trying to do? What concerns did you have? What were the gatekeeping things where if they don't have this, I'm not buying it. It has to have that or I'm not buying it. And we all do that as buyers, but we forget it when we become sellers. We just put on a different hat and start getting desperate and thinking we have to convince people.
The light goes on saying, buy for me, buy for me, buy for me. And one of the things that I really liked, about the book was, when you're talking to your customers, it's 10 to 15 people. So this is not, let's go talk to hundreds, thousands, because, every business owner.
It's actually 5 to 7 people of a given type.
Right.
And then if you have more than one, that's how you got to the 10 to 15. You still need to talk to, let's say it's a B2B situation and you've got the CEO and the purchasing agent and the actual buyer of the product.
So you've got, 5 to 7 CEOs. But the nice thing is we're not talking hundreds, because I think that's one of the things people think about is, well, if I have to, and it doesn't matter what the product or service is, they think, oh my gosh, I have to talk to hundreds of people. I don't have that much time.
Well, no, and it's hard to get people on the phone. I mean, it's, when I do this work, I always end up asking my client for, like, if I'm going to talk to 5 people, I need 15 names because the first third will get back to me and we'll make an appointment. The second third will do it at the second request, and the third will never come back. And that's okay. You just prepare for it. It's how the numbers have been for a long time. So you just get on the phone, you talk to them for a half an hour, you have the conversations recorded and transcribed, you tell them you're going to record, and you tell them that it's an anonymous report, so nobody's going to know what they said. So they speak freely, then it's fine. And then you present that to management in 2 ways. I always do a conversation report, which is the transcription of the conversation, and a summary and recommendations report that sort of boils it all down.
Which is what most of them are only going to read.
No, they actually, believe it or not, surprisingly, they read every
really
word.
They get sucked in.
Well, they do. It's like somebody telling you your life. And I've had so many CEOs say, oh my God, I had no idea that people thought that realized we were having that problem, or gee, that's a great idea. Never even thought about that. There's market opportunities in these conversations. And certainly, what you learn more than anything is the specific thing, the specific promise that you can make to them that matches their mindset. And that offer becomes the thing that takes your leads through the roof. And we've been testing this for about 6 months now. It works.
Well, talk to us about why to do it on the phone, because that really interested me in the book. So tell us about why you decided that the phone is the best way to do this.
Yeah, well, first of all, of course, in COVID now, we're not doing anything in person anyway, but
But
and
we
it's
wouldn't do
expensive.
Zoom for it. It would be phone.
Yes, but Zoom is it's tricky. The minute you get the physical bodies involved, they're no longer just sitting back in their normal environment talking on the phone, and
Right.
they feels anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you get video involved or you're face to face with them, now you're in a social situation.
Right.
They're going to be more careful about what they say,
Body language,
all that stuff. They're going to be influenced by you, and how
right.
you're reacting. So I just found, testing it various ways, that the phone still works. You get people at their office, and even if they're driving their car or whatever and they're mobile, the point is there's just you and them, and you're listening and they're talking, and that's all there is.
So what do you tell the people that go, but Kristin, I don't have time, so I'll just send them an email, or I'll ask on Facebook?
You mean when they say they don't want to talk to their customers?
Right.
You
We
talking
don't
about a
have time
client?
to talk to them on the phone. Let's
I
just
don't
send
take
something
on those
email.
clients.
But
it's not
in the
going to
book,
work.
you talk about why doing email doesn't work.
No, because if somebody's going to write something down, again, it's a safe thing. If I tell them that I'm going to categorize the report by subject, completely anonymize it, they know right away that that's how I'm making a promise. That's how I'm going to present it. And then they just talk freely, and they don't hold anything back.
Right.
If you ask them to write, which takes time, we're all writing, we have to write things all day, it becomes work. Just chatting on the phone is not work. Even though it's good, though, because if you're talking to someone who's not in the C-suite, if the C-suite person walked past, they'd still be talking about work.
Right.
And it would be okay. So it just works the best. The other problem with writing things or a survey or something is that's your preconceived notion. You're asking questions based on what you assume to be the truth, and that truth does not exist in the real world. Every time I go to clients and say, okay, what do you think about all this? They tell me, and then I talk to customers, and it's not the same.
Right. Well, and of course, the nice thing about when you're talking with them on the phone is, and you mentioned this in the book, you can pick up on some of those subtleties. Maybe there's been a change in their tone of voice. And so, now, this is not, let's totally deviate from what we're going to ask, because there's set questions, because your data is not going to be valid if it's just, free for all. But you can, the basic question would be, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the doubt in their voice. If they say, yeah, it was okay, that's not okay.
That's not okay.
That's not, it was fantastic. It was like, okay, I'm testing you now.
Right.
I'm going to say that and see if you respond. And if you say, oh, okay, it was okay, then you haven't heard them, and they start to shut down and end the interview. Right. But if you say, well, wait a minute, sounds like there's a little doubt in your voice there. Can you explain that a little bit more? And then they open up, because they're now relieved that you heard them, and they give you, it's a conversation. It's just a conversation, two human beings, one trying to learn from the other. Right. And they're flattered by that.
So who should be the person doing the interviewing?
Well, it has to be somebody that understands the product or service. And of course, I did this in the tech market for decades, and I understand technology, because remember back when I was standing out in that parking lot, I determined. So I could interview engineers and understand. And if I didn't, if they threw a new acronym out at me, I would stop them and say, wait a minute, what is DHW? And they'd say, oh, that's okay. And then they would know that I had understood the other stuff, because I wasn't afraid. I didn't pretend to know everything. So it has to be somebody who's somewhat familiar with the industry. And again, because this is a conversation, have you ever talked to somebody who really wasn't that interested in what you had to say, but they were being polite? So they would say, well, how are you? And you'd tell them, and then you would get bored yourself, because you knew they weren't listening. And so that's what happens if the person doesn't understand what they're talking about. The other trick, though, is it has to be somebody who can interview without selling.
Mhm.
So it's
Right.
you
So it's
never
not
should
the
put a
salespeople
salespeople.
doing
No, they
this.
can't get on the phone because they're going to say, "Wait, that's not true. We've done that, and here it is, X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z. I'll show you right now." And
Mhm.
then it becomes a sales meeting,
Mhm.
and the
We
client
can
just
solve that problem for
customer.
you. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So it can't be that person. And the other trick is it can't be the owner of the company because they're going to be more polite. That's the
Right.
interesting thing.
Mhm.
I had a situation once where I don't know if I mentioned this in the book, but I was interviewing people who were running sweatshop kind of factories making clothing.
Mm.
And they had these big machines that would cut all these, 1,600 layers of fabric with a
Mhm.
saw on a vacuum bed.
Mhm.
And if the machine went down, their business went down.
Right.
So I was working for a company who I won't say, who had problems with that.
Mhm.
And if the machine went down, they weren't very good at service, but the CEO didn't think that was the case. He thought they were fine.
Mhm.
So I interviewed these guys. We've got one guy in Los Angeles, and he didn't speak English very well. He was from Vietnam or something, running a very successful company,
Mhm.
smart guy. And the machine was down when I called him.
Oh, so he's not happy to start with.
Every other word was F this, F that.
Mhm.
And he
Mhm.
was so upset. These damn machines keep flowing every time when that happens, I can't. So he was mad. So I actually said, wait a minute. Okay, now that we're done with the interview, would you mind if I told the CEO that you've got this problem and
Mhm.
I'd like to get him on the phone with you right away?
Right.
And he said, no, I wouldn't mind at all, of
Mhm.
course. And so I got the CEO on the phone. And that guy was the owner of the sweatshop was so polite. He wasn't swearing. He was saying, because he doesn't
We're
want to.
having an issue.
Yes, exactly. And so the CEO, until he read the transcription of the actual
Mhm.
conversation, didn't realize how serious it was.
Right.
So you have to be careful. People are
Mhm.
more polite. So you find somebody who's knowledgeable, can speak to them,
Mhm.
and is a good listener.
Mhm.
And that's really the requirement. It can be someone inside the company or outside the company. I don't, obviously people hire me all the time to do
Right. Right.
this. So,
Mhm.
fine. But you can have people inside the
Mhm.
company if they're taught how to listen and do this, find the doubt and all those
Right.
little intricacies. But I teach all of that in my book. I didn't hold back anything in the book. I want everybody to be able to do this because it changes everything.
Mhm.
It makes
Right.
all of your marketing
Mhm.
more successful. So
Mhm.
why not?
Right. Yeah, and as we said, figuring out what the customer wants, how they want it, all those various things. It was interesting. I was on a conference call yesterday where the guest speaker was talking about his book, and sounded like a great book. Of course, they gave him the chance at the end to pitch it, which that's always what we like to do. And this brought me up short as a marketing person. I was just astounded at this. He said, "We only sell it as an Audible version," and it must have kind of startled the person leading the thing, because he went, "Oh, really?" And they said, "Yes, we believe that's best for the environment." And it's funny because the guy's tone changed. We believe that's what's best for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, as the busy business person, he's trying to sell that book to me. I don't do Audible books. I don't, now I know that there are people, especially, pre and hopefully post COVID, spend a lot of time in their cars. They do a lot of listening on things like that. But I still want if it's not a physical book, a digital version. But and I was thinking, but you could have done a digital version. There's no harm to the environment with that.
Yeah.
But I like that we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, but if that's not how the people who want to buy your book want it, you're not going to sell much.
Yeah, that's right. And the focus group of one inside of a company where the most powerful person in the room is sitting there saying, well, when I get this, I just ignore those, or I throw that away, or I don't do that. I don't ever do that. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the bulk of your customers and what their real issues are. Now, it could be they agree with you, but if you don't know that for sure, you're just throwing money out the window every day.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. One of the things that I do is I do social media for senior living communities, high level senior living communities, and which is it's actually, I love doing it right now during the pandemic because we're posting so much to show. But anyhow, the president of the company does not use Facebook, does not use any social media. He's very open about all of that, and he's this absolutely delightful man. And he says, but my wife told me you have to do this. And of course, the wife is really who we're trying to reach, because
Yeah.
we're wanting to show the wife that mom, dad, whoever are safe, happy, healthy in the communities.
Right.
But I just love that because he knows exactly who he needs to be talking to.
Yeah.
And, but I love that I don't do it, but my wife said,
Yeah. I think David Ogilvy famously said, one of those brilliant ad guys back in the days of when advertising, sort of the Mad Men period, said the customer's not an idiot, she's your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to make that point that it's not you, and you can't look down at your customer and try to convince them that your way is better.
Right.
The other thing that I think we need to bring up here is that selling as a discipline has changed 100% since the web.
Yep.
Since Google, who owns 95% of the search market, since Google made it possible to pretty much find anything you want if you learn how to search.
Right.
And we've all learned how to search. And know that another option is just a click away. Customers now have total ability to go anywhere. They're not beholden to anyone. They don't have to buy from anyone. And they also have full access to each other, which they didn't have before.
Right.
Before, you'd have to ask around salespeople, maybe one or two people, but now you can go and see what 300 people say about some little widget that you want to buy for your house on Amazon. And Amazon has always led the whole parade on this infrastructure for helping customers buy easily and set the bar. And one of those things is customers answering questions for other people. And you could even do a search in there and say, okay, I'm only interested in this part. How well does it do that?
Yep. And
and you can find out. That changed everything.
Right.
And everybody is still stuck thinking that that's not out there. And it's a mistake, because the customer is way down the road on that one.
Yeah. I think, that the car dealerships that are online, the Carvana and things like that, are probably one of the best examples of that. Now, I can't see myself spending that much money on a car that's just going to be delivered. Now, granted, they have a good return policy, all sorts of things like that. But I'm also not the person that wants to go in and deal with the salespeople and their happy faces and things like that. As you said, I've done my research.
Yeah.
But I need to touch it. I need to, I want to see what color blue is that, because of course that's the most important thing. But yeah, so I still want to do that. But as you said, I've done my research. I know, and most importantly, I know what it should cost. Because that's the big thing. I know all the features. I know what I want, what are have to haves, what are maybes, what are, oh, that's nice, but all those various things. And we do that with many products now. We've done our research in advance, whether it's that we've asked our friends on Facebook or whatever. And as you said, the salesperson really is there more to say, can I get that box down for you?
Yeah, they want to help. A couple of things I want to bring up here based on what you just said. One of them is that I think I was, again, one of the first people to say that by the time they get to a salesperson at this point, they've had 60 to 80% of their questions answered. And now they just have very specific questions. The problem is the salespeople are often trained to answer the first 80%.
Right.
And so now people are starting to hire customer service types or field engineering types who are absolutely equipped to answer that last 10 or 20% of those questions, those very specific questions. So that's a shift that's happening. people don't want to be sold to anymore. They
Right.
don't want to be convinced about anything. If you start selling them, they just turn off and walk away because they know that they're going to be able to get the answers that they want. Now, the other thing we need to bring up here, though, is as I was writing the book, I realized that there were 4 types of products and services in the world based on the amount of scrutiny that the customer applies to the purchase.
I was just bringing that up in the PDF to ask.
Yeah. And so we've got light scrutiny, medium scrutiny, heavy scrutiny, and intense scrutiny products and services. And when I say that, people who are selling products and services, once I give a little more definition, they know where they sit on that spectrum, the scrutiny spectrum. So light scrutiny is a couple of dollars, see it, buy it, don't have many questions, nobody else
Bag
is
of potato
involved.
chips.
Yeah, exactly. Impulse purchases. Medium scrutiny are things like clothing or simple software products where you just see it, you've got a few questions, there's no one else involved, doesn't cost a whole lot more than the other, 20s to hundreds. Heavy scrutiny is it's a big deal. It's a car. It's a house. There's a contract involved. There's some kind of salesperson or somebody who's helping you with the buying process. And there are lots and lots of questions. The point being that the money goes up and the questions go up.
Right.
And the concerns go up. Especially in B2B where you've got your reputation's on the line. If you buy something for the company and it doesn't work, nobody will ever forget that you made that mistake. Okay. It's just the way it is. So avoiding corporate embarrassment is one of the biggest drivers for corporate buyers, not greed. It's just that. So, and then the intense scrutiny level is when it's just like heavy, there's a contract, there's all this big risk involved, but you get married. There's some kind of ongoing relationship. One of the goals of this whole process of selling the way people want to buy is if you have an intense scrutiny product or service, which I do, in the digital agency revenue coaching, you want to do such a good job of the marketing and answering the questions they have before they buy that by the time they get to you, you're really down to the medium scrutiny level. They've only got 2 or 3 questions. By the time people come to me, they've seen my podcast, they've read my book or whatever, they know they want to hire me, and they just want to know, how much do you cost? When can you start? And do you want to work with us? And that's it. My marketing has done all the other work. So that's what you want to do. You want to get that marketing to do all that work. And so the sale is just closing. That's it.
Right. Answering those final little questions that are just more very specific about something.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, but how do we know that? Ask.
How do we know what?
How do we know what people are going to ask? Well, you ask the people. That's what we've been saying.
And that's it.
Yeah. And of course the big thing, and I hear this, so I'm guessing you hear it a lot, is, but what if they tell us something bad? I have people who tell me, well, we're not going to have a presence on, say, Facebook because people are going to say something bad. And I tell them, okay, well, they're saying it anyway. Yeah. So the point is you need to be there to be able to respond.
Yeah, exactly. You want to do listening and be able to respond. Yeah. And one of the things that comes out of the research is I tell the people that I'm doing it for that we're going to find out what you do well, better than anybody else. And that's what we're going to promote. And then there are going to be things that you need to improve. But that's an opportunity because now you're going to know for sure what's keeping people from buying or what made them hesitate or the things they've been disappointed about that they're now telling everybody else on social media. And so once you know those things, you can address them. You won't be in the dark. You won't be the last guy to know that that's why people aren't buying or whatever. Right. And so you can then take that data and improve on it and then promote that you've actually, you had this problem and you fixed it. Right. Go back out into the market. So it's win-win all the way across. Right.
Yeah. Companies should always want to know the bad. And granted, there are people that we're going to deal with that doesn't matter. They're not going to like it. Okay. Those are the people that you just say, gee, we're terribly sorry.
Yeah.
And you let that go.
Yep.
You're not going to win them over,
Yeah.
and I always tell, like, especially if, say, someone has complained on social media, and I say, we need to respond.
Oh, yes, you need to
And
respond
oh yeah, I said,
in a
no,
nice
no
way.
ostrich stuff. And I
Yeah.
said, now there are obviously very clear ways to respond. I said, we never want to point fingers. We never want to place blame.
Right.
I'm sorry is usually the best thing you can say. And I said, but more importantly, I said, they almost never look back at it, but it's the other people who see it.
Oh yeah.
So, like Yelp reviews, those are good examples. The people who write the review, they never see it. But when I'm looking at it as a potential customer, I want to see how the company responded. And if they have a cut and paste, thank you very much for your comments. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm like, okay. No.
Yeah. Nobody's awake. They're not woke, as they say now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and online reviews like that are, of course, one of a great thing that people should be looking at.
Oh yeah.
I know companies who say, really, they can review us. Oh, I don't read those. Well, why not? And again, more than likely, well, not more than likely, it's a mix. You've got the really great ones, which you obviously want to know those. But then you've got the negatives, and we talk about you need the negative. Obviously, the positive is just as good, because that's where you're going to find things like, oh my gosh, that salesperson people love, or that employee, or whatever, or that feature people really love, and we thought that was kind of an extra, but people, and those are the things too. Yeah,
there's a balance. There's a bigger picture too. Sometimes there's too many positive things, and they all sound like they were written by the same person. And so then you get suspicious. There's that. There's also, you see a negative review, but you think, oh, well, that doesn't really apply to me. That's okay. So every so often, if there's sort of a negative thing and the company responds well to it, okay, you're not even going to worry about that.
Right.
It's when you see 20 people saying, I got this thing, and a week later it broke. And they're really ticked off, and a lot of them are fine. You get the same thread. It's the big picture that we're looking for. That's why I talk to 5 to 7 people, because by the 5th person, I start hearing that very same phrases.
Right.
They've never spoken to each other. They don't know each other, and yet they're saying the exact same thing about their personal experience.
Right.
So it's the truth. It's the actual truth.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because they haven't probably talked to each other to get their stories the same.
No, not like that.
Yeah. And so when you do hear it from multiple people, and of course, that's why we like reading the reviews, because they're unbiased. We
Usually,
know that, and it's funny, because that's what I also tell my clients is, you can go in and you can write a review, but you need to make it clear that you work there.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You have to do that. And I've done that.
That's perfectly fine. Yeah.
I have a client that sells makeup and hair stuff, and I've been a client of hers for a long time, and I just say I work for her.
Right.
But
this is still a great product.
If I didn't, I'd still be buying these.
Right.
Just tell the truth. The truth is an amazing, wonderful force in the world. It's the thing that drives everything. And so what we're really doing here is we're finding out the truth about what your customers really want and how they want to buy it. And then we're acting on that truth.
Right.
And when you act on the truth, everything works out, because the truth is like, there it is. There's no escaping it. It is the truth.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Amazon before. Of course, they are the king at doing all of this. And of course, the funny thing are the people that went, that's never going to work. Barnes and Noble would be obviously. Oh yeah,
I remember that came out in 94, I think. And I was there looking at that, and I thought to myself, this is the first tech company that has started a company based on their infrastructure, not their product,
right,
not their service, but he built an infrastructure. And then and I thought, this is going to be really interesting to watch, because that's what he did. He made the infrastructure the star.
Right.
And there aren't very many companies that do that. It's one of the reasons when I started this company, the first thing I did was hire someone I call an app whisperer, who was an infrastructure type of person. And we built the system that was the first thing I did,
Right.
because I knew that if I don't have a system that
Mhm.
helps me keep my promises, I'm not going to
Mhm.
be able to do a good job. It's
Right.
just the way it is.
Mhm. Well, speaking of promises, one of the things you talk about in the book is kind of the brand promise.
Mm.
And I love the example that you give of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Hmm.
You know, and the fact that for many years, and those of us of a certain age will remember that their tagline was "finger licking good."
Yeah.
That said it all right
So
there.
the story there is there was a guy who was sitting with somebody I knew who was a marketing guy in a tech company, and he was sitting with a bunch of engineers and saying, what makes your product great? And they were all saying things like bits and bytes and feeds and speeds and limited only by your imagination. It was just driving him nuts. And he
Mhm.
said, if you guys were selling Kentucky Fried Chicken, the data sheet headline would be dead chicken parts, and the
Mhm.
subhead would be fried in grease at 200 degrees, which, and when you know that and you
Right.
look at all the marketing
Mhm.
around the world, you start thinking that's dead, that's
Mhm.
fried chicken. There it is,
Right.
it's
Mhm.
dead chicken parts.
Mhm.
He said, not one of you in this room would have thought of finger licking
Mhm.
good.
Right.
And I
But the
love that story,
customers did.
but
Mhm.
the customers did. And the beauty of that is that's the peak
Mhm.
Kentucky Fried Chicken moment. You've
Right.
just finished, you're licking your fingers, you
Mhm.
haven't gotten indigestion yet.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's the moment. It's that, I
Mhm.
call it the visual moment of satisfaction.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things you're looking for in your interviews, is
Mhm.
you want to find that aha moment
Right.
when they said, oh man, I'm so glad I
Mhm.
got this. Look at how good
Mhm.
this is. And that should be another thing I talk about. And I have a guide out called A Guide to Mindset Driven Marketing.
Mhm.
And one of the things I talk about is mindset immersion,
Mhm.
where you get the mindset and then you just give a customer everything they need to know about that. And
Mhm.
one of the examples I use is a company called Vital Farms.
Mhm.
They're an egg company, and all they talk about is how happy those hens are and how much room they have.
Mhm.
You can actually see the the farms where these chickens are raised and go to a web URL. They put it on their
Oh.
package,
Uh-huh.
and they show all these wonderful chickens running around.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's just fantastic. But
Mhm.
that's mindset immersion. They
Mhm.
understood that people want the chickens to be happy. That's
Mhm.
why they're buying a certain egg brand.
Right.
And they're just going as
Mhm.
deep as they can
Mhm.
into that whole way of thinking
Mhm.
about, what we're talking about, what we're
Mhm.
passionate about. That's where you need to get to.
Mhm. Right. And it does come back to the battle between marketing and sales. Marketing, we're all told you have to have a tagline.
Yeah.
One of the best known taglines in the world is "just do it."
Yeah.
Is that really saying anything? No, not really. I mean,
Yeah, but it goes with sports. It
mhm,
goes with,
yeah,
there's a
just go
reason
out
that
and
that
do it.
works. Yeah.
Mhm.
Go
Right.
out and do it. Don't sit on the couch and get
Mhm.
fat.
Right.
Just go
Just
out
do
and
it.
do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's why that
Mhm.
worked.
Yeah. But there are so many more where you look at it and, as market, we just shake our heads. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, who came up with that? Or
Yeah.
the mission statements.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Never. Oh no, I know.
Oh, that somebody labored on for, and do we say or the?
Yeah.
And
No, you're right. So
and
much
then
stuff
it's
wasted.
it's on the wall. Now, that's not saying they shouldn't have them, because we need to kind of know those things. But that's not, you shouldn't have spent 4 weeks trying to come up with your mission
No,
statement.
no. Marketing by committee is a big mistake.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, and nothing good comes from those discussions
No, no.
unless you are talking to the customers first, and
Mhm.
then you have that big meeting,
Right.
because now
Mhm.
the customer's in the room.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does, there are times where there are some other things that are, that make things complicated. I did marketing for a very large financial services corporation. So the other elephant in the room was the government, who said,
Hmm.
you can say this and you can't say that.
Yes.
And so it was always really funny when I would work on a new marketing piece, where I had a process that we had to go through, did we ask the customers? No. So that was the first big mistake we made. So we were the marketing people. We were just saying, buy this, buy this, buy this. It's the best thing since sliced bread. I literally had 27 people that had to approve it. Now, most of those never even read it. They just wanted to be on the list.
Yes, that's right.
Now there were a couple attorneys on there, and a couple people. We actually had a couple salespeople on there, so the people who were dealing with the customers. So at least we got a little closer to that.
Yeah.
And so I learned very quickly on that, most of those 27 people, like we said, just wanted to be on the list. And so when I sent my email out, I would say, your deadline to respond is. If you have not responded by that deadline, I will assume that you have approved this. And then I listed the specific people who I had to hear from, the attorneys and the salespeople. And, and if I hadn't heard from them, I would go back to them, especially the attorneys, because really was, that was something. But yeah. And then everybody else, they were happy that they got included on the list, and that was fine. But heaven forbid I take them off. If they went for, however many times and never responded, and I thought, and I took them off. No. But yeah, marketing by committee is always such fun. And it is even worse when you have things like federal regulations and all of those things.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher in that sense. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's just, but again, if you go back to the customer let's face it, the customer is the one who's going to buy.
Right.
So why not go to them?
People, not the CEO.
Exactly. Not the lawyers, the customer is the one who's going to give you the money.
Mm-hmm.
So why not put your ego aside? Mm-hmm. The biggest problem is people assume that they know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They assume that this is what's important to the customer. And that assumption is honestly, I think it's the most expensive assumption in the business world across the board.
Right.
The minute you assume that, you're off target, you're not you're going to spend all that marketing money and salespeople and everything, and they're going to miss the mark.
Right.
And the customer's just going to go, oh, well, they don't get me, click.
Yeah.
And I'm off to the next one.
Yeah.
Just like that.
And if you actually got it correct, it was luck.
No, that happens. That's right. That's right. We changed 2 words for one company. We have a client that sells luxury yacht cruises for $100,000 to $1 million a week. Okay. And in the midst of a COVID pandemic and all of that, you would think that their leads would just dry up and the business would dry up and that would be it. We figured out, and I'm not going to say what it is because it's secret sauce for her, but we figured out 2 words that we could put in the ads, and we hockey sticked. And she's getting 100 to 200 leads a month now.
Yep. Oh yeah. And it's like we said, things change. And so you have to adapt. You have to take advantage. Of course, the big thing now is so many people are saying, no contact, clean. I laugh and I always say, I'm sorry, how many times were they touching my pizza before this?
Yeah. Food's a tricky one. Yeah.
And wait a minute, now you're cleaning the restaurant?
Yeah.
Wasn't it clean before? We laugh about those, but
yeah.
But it does make us reevaluate things, and it's funny because as we were talking, I was thinking about the fact that in the last months, many of the people that I have talked to, we've really focused on the pandemic and on COVID and things like that, and we really haven't, because aside from some basic things, it hasn't changed much. But the one thing I was thinking about is now is a great time for businesses to really be reevaluating this. We're not saying people have spare time, but they do have maybe a little bit more time, but also the customers, especially if we do things like, many companies I think are going to continue having their employees home office, all of those things. So I think the research that people do before they buy is just going to skyrocket.
Oh yeah, that's definitely happening. People spend a lot more time. Yeah. You can spend an hour and a half on Amazon making a decision about a $7 thing.
Right.
Just because so much information is there. Well, but you really want to, it's a pain to return stuff.
Right. Even on Amazon. Yeah, because can we go back into Kohl's again? I think we can. But yeah, I mean, it's people have more time right now to be doing things like that. But companies also should really be stopping right now and thinking, okay, when we come out of this, what's going to happen? People's buying habits will be changing.
They're changed already. People are changed already.
That really is the biggie. So, say we're a clothing store. how do we answer questions about all the things that, because trying on the clothes is the biggie. Well, now you
Yeah.
can't, you can't do that. Even the stores we're going into.
Yeah.
But if you're ordering online, okay, well, I want to know, is small really small?
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and what color is that blue?
Yeah.
And things like that. And how easy is it to return it?
Yeah.
Or can I?
Yeah.
And so like we said, those are the questions that the customers have.
Yep.
And so they want to be able to answer that, because if I can't tell that blue is going to be the blue I want, then I'm going to go find another blue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just a click away.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, oh my gosh, Kristin, we are, see, I tell people this is why I set the timer, because we could just go on forever, and granted it's marketing and I love talking about marketing, but, it's so much fun. And I shouldn't say it's marketing, because it's not, it's customer centric. And that really is the thing. And there's a quote that I found on your website, and then I want you to tell people more about what you do, but you say, absolutely nothing in marketing matters more than the customer's mindset when making a purchase.
That's right. If you get that right, then everything else you spend,
right.
all the channels, all the personas, everything else you do is going to work.
Right.
If you don't get that right, nothing's going to work.
Right. Right. Yeah, if your customer doesn't use Facebook, then why the heck are you spending a lot of time on Facebook?
Exactly. Just because everybody says you got to be there. No.
Yeah. And
it's about where they would go to look for you. That's the other thing. If they wouldn't expect to find you. Now, I will say for social, you do have to be there. They just want to know. And
as we said, if somebody's saying something bad, you need to be able to respond.
Yeah, but you just have to be there anyway. It's just part of the cost of doing business now. But they'll go there to see what you are saying, what you care about, and how asleep at the switch you are. If you haven't posted for 3 months, they're going to notice.
Right.
It's not so much about who's following you. If you're just, I'm not talking about celebrities and sports figures and things. That's a whole other category. Yeah. But I'm just talking about normal people selling normal stuff. And they will go in and see what you care about. Because more and more, just like the good chickens happy out there in the field with, more than 1 square foot of space, that people are getting very concerned about who's this company and are they this big, terrible corporation, or do they really care about their customers?
Right. Well, Kristin, tell us how people find you and connect with you online, and then tell a little bit more about what Zhivago Partners does.
Okay, so you can just type Kristin Zhivago in Google and you'll find me. But the website is zhivagopartners.com. Pretty much everything's on there. You can get to the book from there. I only sell on Amazon, but I do sell Kindle and hard copy and Audible of the book. The blog that I write once or twice a month is up there. I also write a labor of love blog for the up-and-comers called Kristin's Wisdom, where I'm publishing an article about Business 101, how it really works, how to succeed in business for the up-and-comers. So that's just a blog, kristinswisdom.com. But anyway, zhivagopartners.com. And we also are offering the mindset-driven guide, a mindset-driven marketing guide, which I just finished. That's published, and you can find that on the website as well. So zhivagopartners.com.
I've downloaded it. It's a very short, quick, fast read, but great information.
It's good. It's good. I enjoyed trying to help people do this better, because honestly, it's the most broken part of business. If manufacturing worked the way marketing worked, nothing we produced would work.
Yeah,
it's sad.
Because we think we know what they want.
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
And we keep we for those who are watching the video, every time we say assume, we kind of snicker.
Yeah.
But because we all know that
what that stands for, right?
But we do assume that we know what our target market wants. And there's just lots of things wrong in that sentence.
Yeah.
Yes, it takes time.
You did ask me to say what. So Zhivago Partners is I call it a digital marketing management company, because we basically are can be an outsourced marketing department for
Great.
people. And we come in the middle of their movie, and sometimes we work with their people and our people. And I call it partners because we're partnering with our clients to get their marketing right. And we specialize in digital marketing, but of course we do other stuff as well. But it's all of the specialists. I have very good specialists in the various channels and the disciplines, the writing and all of that stuff. And we've built a marketing machine, basically, and it works. So,
well, and obviously virtual,
yes,
this
we
day
are
and
a
age,
virtual
we have
company.
to be, but, and so you can work with people from around the world.
Yeah.
Great. I love it. Well, Kristin, is there any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, don't assume. It's very expensive.
Right.
It's the worst mistake you can make. And just put your ego aside and say, you know what, I'm going to try to learn this mindset, understand the mindset of the customer when they set out to buy, and figure out how to make an offer, whether it's a product or a downloadable or something that appeals to that mindset. And you're going to do 100% better than you're doing now.
Great. I love it. Well, again, the book is Roadmap to Revenue, How to Sell the Way Your Customers Want to Buy. Great, great, great. As we said, you go into great, good detail saying, here are the questions you want to ask.
Yep.
Here, it's not just ask, interview them. No. You give questions, all these various things. So fabulous resource.
Good. Thank you. It's been fun talking with you about marketing.
I know. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. And we can do this again, and we should do this again.
Okay.
So look forward
Sounds
to
good.
chatting with you again. So
All right.
I'm Deb Creer. I really have been having a fascinating time talking with Kristin Zhivago. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.